Mo, can you do us the honor of a roll call?
Sure. Good evening, Commissioners. Commissioner Miller,
Here.
Commissioner Houghton,
Here.
Commissioner Bowen,
Here.
Commissioner Gregg,
Here.
Commissioner Grabman,
Here.
Vice Chair Maya,
Here.
and Chair Glazier.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
Wow, first time.
Fantastic. Thank you guys for all being here. At this time, Director Hastert, any changes to the agenda?
No changes to the agenda.
All right, in that case, it is duly noted that on Thursday, June 12th, 2025 at 5 p.m., the Airport Commission's secretary duly posted this agenda on the bulletin board at the Airport Administration. Do we have any public comment? Any speaker slips at all? Okay, well, this is going to go a little bit quicker tonight. And we don't have either of our officials here for liaison reports, so we'll move on to number 5. Director Hastert, I'm calling you for your report.
Thank you, Chair Glazer. I only have just a couple of items. It's been a little slow for commission update type items, but we did have an airport day. It was titled Imagine, that was hosted by Dolores Johnson with Montecito Motor Classic. They coordinated to have an airport day done by Hangar 1. I will say it was a very successful day. I saw a couple of commissioners, I believe, out there as well. Topaz, thanks for helping with all of the effort that you did out there that day and the day before. But very successful event. I don't have a count yet of how many people came out. I think the attendance was a little lighter than we had hoped for, but was still good attendance, and we made some very good contacts with a lot of youth out there. I will say that we will be having an after-action meeting to discuss it, and I will bring back anything that comes out of that back to the commission. But the one thing that I noticed is even when we're coordinating with somebody to host an event, there is still a lot of effort that staff has to put in. And so we tried to require the permittee to do a lot of those tasks. And unfortunately, the organizer had a medical issue the morning of and wasn't not even able to attend the event. So our airport facilities team did an amazing job of stepping in and putting up some of the perimeter fencing and things like that. But in the future, for an airport day, I'm still very supportive that we should be more engaged with the community. I think there will be some additional expense to the airport to maybe take on some of those tasks and rent some equipment for fencing and other things rather than rely on an organizer to put up that security barricade, because it ended up being a very intensive effort that my team wasn't quite expecting, but jumped to the challenge and made the event happen. At the event, for those of you that are into aviation, we actually had the AOPA president flew in a P-51 from, he's not based at Hayward, but the P-51 was based at Hayward. 2 Travelers, which is kind of a nice older biplane, a Stearman with a very well-traveled woman aviator, kind of retracing different routes that very famous aviators have taken. Stearman has been to Australia and all over the place. And a lot of good speakers and a lot of good interaction with youth, also including Safe Launch, which is a group that you can basically, they have youth come and paint the airplane with like finger type paints and things like that to try to keep youth off of alcohol and drugs to get into aviation programs. And also want to say the host of the event was Atlantic Aviation, because the airport does not have an area large enough to host an event like that. So very grateful to Atlantic for freeing up their facility for that as well. But ultimately a good event. We hope to have more in the future, especially once we move forward with the FBOs and have them on this side of the airport. I think that whole northwest corner of the airport could be opened up for an even bigger event. But definitely, I think the airport's going to have to be much more involved in the future, because we end up being more involved than we expect anyway. John just got back from the Jumpstart conference, and I guess I'm going in a weird order on my list here. We have a promotion to announce. Lauren Gonzalez is our new marketing supervisor. I believe as of today, the marketing coordinator position that she was filling is now posted on the city website, and that's not promotion. It's an externally available position. So if you know of anybody that is interested, that is posted on the city's HR page right now. And so with Angie leaving, with personal issues that I had with graduating senior, John was forced to go to his first Air Service Development Conference and represented us very well. So I just want to thank him for attending that conference. Nothing huge or major to report other than our existing carriers are still doing well and happy, and we continue to have good relations with our existing carriers and potential future carriers. And then the last thing that I have on my list is just that the budget that the commission approved was approved by the city council yesterday.
Commissioners, do you have any questions? Paul?
Yes, well, first off, I'd like to say thanks for the staff and to Atlantic Aviation. The event I thought was really good, and that kind of event helps those of us out in Goleta like having an airport here, which we certainly need more of that. So thanks for everybody making that happen. Not mentioned in your director's report, have you had any contact or reached out to the FAA regarding the Flout 5 departures early in the morning, having them assign them so that the planes will turn out to sea rather than buzz all of Goleta?
So I don't know what has been officially announced or not yet, but there's a lot of transition going on right now. So we have not made any progress with that. I'm hopeful that we'll have some new people to work with to help with that coordination. But there's more news to come. I don't want to step on anybody's announcements, but there's a lot of transition right now.
Well, thanks for everything you do to help make that happen. That was my only question.
Oh, my question was more of a curiosity as I drove in. I was wondering what's going on with the dining concept next door. What progress has been?
I have not taken a tour of the facility, but I'll let John Feldhans, our properties manager, answer that question if that's okay.
Sure. So I had a tour of it yesterday. It looks fantastic inside. He's got a bunch of murals on the wall, going from it'll be kind of a airport theme when you walk in, looking out towards Signature. It'll be more kind of airport theme. He has the orchards kind of off to the side, and then he's got a beautiful AI mural of the Goleta and Gaviota kind of coastline that's getting painted on the wall, and he's done a lot of work to it, and looks like he's going to look at opening up towards the end of July. So still going forward. One thing he did tell us, he's going to, I don't know if you guys heard of Fringe Coffee. They're going to go in there. So apparently that's a big thing. I don't drink coffee, but it's a big thing. So, but it looks really good inside. So.
All right. Well, that's exciting. Thanks for the update. I know everybody. I've mentioned it to it. Mentioned it too. I just really thought that's going to be great to have.
Just to take a step back really quick on the airport day as well, I mentioned Montecito Motor Classic was involved in it. We had a lot of really nice classic and new cars out there as well, and so those people actually helped to make for a very good event, so it was more than just airplanes out there.
Dennis?
Other than I've got a squeaky chair. I follow up on the next door. So with Dean across the street, are there any issues with kind of having him sublet to a coffee shop? Do we have any restrictions, or is there any, just kind of curious?
No restrictions, but I think it's gonna be kind of a different clientele than what Dean's is kind of offering. He's gonna have, so there's windows on the backside that they're gonna have open, so like Signature's clients can come in and get window service coffee and stuff like that. So I don't think it's gonna be any competition for Dean at all.
Dennis?
Yeah. My only question, curious what the title is of Lauren Gonzalez's former position, in case I bump into someone that might be eligible.
Marketing coordinator.
Marketing coordinator, okay.
And that's open till July 10th, just an FYI.
If you had to take a guess at how many people attended the event for Airport Day, ballpark?
That's really rough. I couldn't even put a guess to it. Commissioner Grabman, any idea? I was running around so much I wasn't counting people.
Yeah, I don't know.
More than 50?
I would say more than 50 for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But
Oh,
yeah,
many hundreds, but not many
Maybe
thousands.
250, 300.
Okay.
that's great. That might be in the ballpark. Yeah.
Any other questions? I assume we have no speaker slips or All right, then we can. Actually, I'm going to go back to number 4. Councilman Caston has joined us. Do you have any updates for us on the city of Goleta?
Everything is hunky-dory in Goleta.
Good in the good land. All right, fantastic. Thank you.
I'll add one in for the city of Goleta. They did have a Goleta block party that was very well attended. We had an airport booth out there as well, so a lot of good questions from people about the airport at the Goleta block party.
That's great. All right, moving on to the consent calendar. We have a handful of leases here. Again, thank you guys for taking a look at all these. Commissioners, do you have any questions, concerns, clarifications regarding the consent calendar? Seeing none, I assume we have no speaker slips as well. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented?
I move to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. Thank you, guys. Moving on to number 12. Back to Director Hastert.
Thank you, Chair Glazer. As you know, we're trying to bring more information to the commission to let you know what's really going on at the airport, make sure we're very transparent in our operations and what we're doing out here. So I asked Michael Smith, our operations manager, to just do a very quick presentation on our recent FAA annual inspection. Overall, I think the inspection went very well. Obviously, there's always little things to be found, but I'll turn it over to Mike.
All right, thank you. So again, as a Class 1 commercial service airport, we have to have an annual FAA certification inspection. And every year, the FAA comes out here and they inspect basically our airport for safety standards. So ensuring that we're abiding by the safety standards and we're protecting the aircraft that land here and the community that it serves. Again, the FAA comes out, conducts an inspection here. They present their preliminary findings to the airport management. They issues a detailed formal inspection report, and then they provide a letter of compliance. So our inspection this year was from May 20th to May 22nd, and the FAA has identified 4 discrepancies across our airport, included faded and worn taxiway centerline pavement markings, fuel farm, housekeeping, overgrown vegetation along sections of the perimeter fence, and 1 new fire extinguisher. So these are very minor. They also take a look at a lot of other things. So aircraft rescue and firefighting, they take a look at our aircraft accidents, if we have any, and they kind of evaluate how we're doing here as an airport. So just to kind of go through some of the discrepancies here, very minor. We're actually out there today, and we painted parts of taxiway Alpha. So these are just some of the center lines there that have, throughout the year, we've had to do some crack sealing on it. And we were actually planning on getting out there to repaint those markings the week before. But as you know, June gloom doesn't provide the right conditions for drying the markings. So we're going to get out there and finish that next week. Some of the fuel farm housekeeping, sometimes we'll do some vegetation control and it'll create some debris sitting out there, and it looks like there's some little leaks going on. They had some kitty litter out there, so they recommended us to get those cleaned up, and we got those cleaned up very quickly. Also, there was 1 fire extinguisher that needed to be a 40-pound as a 20-pound. So it's like a lot of little minor things, but these are kind of things that he's out here and he's paying attention to the smaller details. Sometimes they're missed, sometimes for honest reasons, and we just want to comply with them and get them fixed as soon as possible. And then we had some vegetation along a fence line, and obviously here in California and basically everywhere, it's you can't just go out there and just start trimming trees. So last week we had a bird survey biologist out here to kind of look at the trees, to evaluate the nesting season and see what kind of wildlife are transitioning through the trees. So we should have gotten that approval, and we'll be able to kind of clear those tree lines. And those are all the discrepancies. Sometimes they do provide recommendations. So we do have 4 recommendations from our certification inspector. And actually this year was a new cert inspector. Every 3 years, they rotate new cert inspectors to kind of check out new airports, to get different eyes on your facility. So we're very fortunate with our new inspector, Jose. So some of these were things that I've been hitting on for the last couple of years. So his recommendation, just helps me to pursue these a little bit more. So the first one is to reduce the number of movement drivers on our airfield. So obviously, every year, air traffic control, we have our runway safety action team meeting, and a lot of that is around runway incursions. Well, that happens not only with aircraft, but with movements of vehicles. And right now, we have a large list of individuals for their own reason, whether it's a maintenance provider, FBO, an airline. And so just kind of looking at the priorities and if we need them to have access, or my team is able to assist, to provide these escorts. Whether there's an aircraft emergency, we can provide a tug out there to support the aircraft. So it's really just kind of looking at all these. Specifically, the airlines, they don't really need access to the movement area. And that sounds odd, but realistically, all they're doing is pushing the aircraft back from the terminal gates onto taxiway Echo. So a lot of airports have letter of agreements with air traffic control just to allow the pilot to call for pushbacks and for the tug to go back to the terminal ramp. So very minor, but that would reduce the number of movement drivers significantly. So, sorry, Chris, trying to keep this brief. Also, after reviewing some of our driver training curriculum, he mentioned having a little bit more information on specifically our dimensions of our runways and of our taxiways that we all know, but having that specifically in a couple slides that it was missing. Let's see. During our construction, if you guys have noticed, we have a lot of construction going out there. We are rehabilitating a lot of pavements. And a lot of the haul routes for the construction have kind of deteriorated a lot of our markings. And of course, he came out here to do our cert inspection, which my personal opinion was a perfect time to evaluate the construction safety phasing plans and evaluate, how we're managing that. But it does make the markings kind of get worn down. So he just recommended, as we did to the contractor, to kind of refresh those markings. And also he pointed out a few trainings for our aircraft rescue and firefighters, specifically with the FLIR, forward-looking infrared training, which they do a lot of training on it, but a little bit more formalized training. And then specifically ballistic parachute systems. This is not a requirement, this is a recommendation, but with our recent incident with Cirrus aircraft, a lot of aircraft now are trying to get these parachute ballistic systems, and understanding when you're approaching those aircraft that have had an alert or an accident, of not only focusing on the fuel and the fuel shutoffs, but to focus on those systems that could also explode. So we felt like that was a good recommendation. Again, our teams are actively working to resolve all these matters, and specifically, a lot of people look at the FAA to come out here as their enforcement actions, but I've been saying for years, it's all about the partnership with the FAA to ensure the safety of our airport and the safety to our community. So,
And I'd just like to add that, in my opinion, those were very minor discrepancies. It's a very thorough inspection. They look through all of our training records for aircraft rescue firefighting, for all of our staff, for the driver's training. They look at all of our pavements out there for any discrepancies. We found a little one with markings, but they're also looking for cracks, for lips that are above a certain height. They're very clued in on a very thorough inspection. So the fact that we came out with minor discrepancies, I was very happy with our operations team.
any questions?
Just maybe make a comment. Congratulations, because you've done a job well done if you find a couple things off. So, and how can you really prepare for something like this? You just have to be diligent 365 days a year working on these things. So congratulations on a great effort here. This is very good.
Yeah, thank you. Just one question specifically. You mentioned the Cirrus accident that occurred. Since it's not on airport property, was that something that got reviewed in this or was looked at or anything? Were there lessons learned, or did they say anything about that? Because it's not really on airport property, right? So,
correct. We did provide our basic report on that, but since it wasn't on airport property, we did not go into depth.
Okay.
And a lot of the review on that would be through the NTSB, and they're still reviewing that. The FAA just wants to know how many accidents we've had here and what, initial findings we had. So not much.
If I could add a little bit to that, because I have received a few emails just from some community members asking about that specific accident and wondering what the airport is doing to investigate that, or what the airport is doing as far as like any disciplinary procedures or anything if the pilot's made a mistake or anything like that. That is definitely the FAA and the NTSB who focus on that. And unfortunately, the NTSB process is very thorough, but that also makes it very slow. So we don't have a final report for that accident yet, but we will look at that report, and if there's anything that we could be doing differently on the airport, if it involved fuels or involved anything going on here that we could be doing something differently, we will definitely review that report as well. But unfortunately, not out there yet.
Thank you, guys. Nice work. Any speaker slips for this one? Nope. All right. Any final thoughts, discussion? Nope. All right. Moving on. Item number 13. Back to you, Director Hazard.
Thank you, Chair Glazer. I'm going to turn this one over to John Feldhans to go over our annual airport property lease rates. He has changed things up a little bit this year because we do have a different level of properties out there in condition, and I'll let him speak to that.
Thank you. So I'm going to go over the commercial and industrial rates for the commercial and industrial properties that we have. Make sure I click on both. So just a brief overview of what the properties division manages. So we have approximately 173,000 square feet of office, retail, and storage and light industrial space outside of the AOA. So it's mostly on the north side of the airfield. Also, approximately 337,000 square feet of aeronautical space. That does not include the runways, taxiways, and all the land in between. So we try to benchmark our commercial and industrial rates against the Goleta market. As you can see, in comparing the 2024 Q4 average and the 2025 Q1 average, they did decline a little bit. Retail, office is down 3%, retail is down 5%, and industrial is down 14%. So this table shows kind of a comparison to our current rates. So this will be the fiscal 25 rates compared to the quarter one of 2025 average. And you can see we're definitely below average on some of those on the low end, and on the higher end, we're either approaching or we're above average on some of those. And speaking to what Chris mentioned, so I did a little bit of research in seeing kind of the building classes that they have out there. So they have the A, Bs, and Cs. Didn't really see much of on the Ds or anything else. So the class A and Bs are the highest quality in the market. They're typically the newer buildings or the ones that have been renovated. And they're mostly in the prime locations. So an example would be the 6100 Hollister complex. Those are probably our newest ones, built in I think 2017, I believe. So they're newer, but they're not super new. But I would still class them as like a A or a B. Class C is kind of where most of our properties kind of fall. This is the older properties, the less desirable locations, limited amenities. And typically these tend to fall roughly between 30 to 40% below market. And these kind of target the more budget conscious tenants. So for our proposed rates, so this is the proposed price per square foot that we're proposing. And as you can see, we're still within that 30 to 40% on the low end, below average. But we are getting to that market rate for the higher end. So if it's a Class A or a Class B building, we can still get closer to market rate. And if it's an older building that doesn't have a lot of those amenities, we have enough flexibility to go down to meet that budget conscious tenant. And that was super quick. Is there any questions?
A couple.
Commissioners?
Yeah, so what's our vacancy rate?
That's a good question. So I have several buildings that I am currently working on getting mitigated for mold. So I have a little bit. It's a little bit higher. I don't know what the percentage is off the top of my head. But of those buildings that I can rent, we're full. I have maybe one that I can rent out, but it's getting vacated. You just approved it, so it's going to get vacated as soon as they move to the new building. So we're pretty high. So
And are these rates triple net?
I don't know. So that's something that I got to dive into a little bit more. And I don't know if Chris can speak.
So our leases are all over the place, and depending on when they were negotiated and who we negotiated with, some of them were leased to government agencies, in which case we're paying a lot more of the fees, but we charge a higher rent for that. So there's not one real answer that we can say, but I would say most of them probably are, but they're all over the place.
When we do the comparison, that'd be a good time to try to make sure we're comparing apples to apples.
Okay. Yeah, I can take that back and work on that.
The other thing that we've actually been trying to do with all of our new leases is to put the CAM charges in there where we have community space to be able to recover some of those charges as well. And so that was new to us, other than I think we might have done some of that maybe in the terminal, but John and his team has been putting that together for some of our new leases as well.
Some questions for you and some comments on it. Comments as far as the level or quality of your buildings throughout the decades. As a Goleta business owner, I have gone through the process of almost renting from the airport and found that the buildings were, and I'm a budget conscious kind of business owner, really poor due to a lack of good maintenance. So I completely agree with your market rates being lower. Some of the selling points was the better security out here, and some of the negative points was having to deal with the city of Santa Barbara rather than back then the county of Santa Barbara. The city of Goleta might or might not be better, but definitely better. He's right. Yes, sir. But so if we can do anything more on maintenance and get a little head on that curve, I think it would be good for your stuff. Your lease agreements historically were all over the place, as you were saying. I was presented prospective leases that were totally different on two different occasions, looking to rent two different properties here. So getting to a more commercial standard, triple net, would be great if you guys can move it towards that.
Yeah, so Commissioner Rowan, that is the goal of ours, is to be consistent. Now, obviously, some buildings are different from other buildings, so it won't necessarily be the same rate for all of them. But how we do business within the division and in the properties division or even the department is just consistency. But then also looking at the specific plan area north of Hollister overall and coming up with the strategic plan for what buildings really need more renovation, what buildings maybe need to be taken out, what buildings should be included in areas where we want to do more of what past Chair Houghton has brought up for technology and UCSB coordination. So all of it is a balance. We have a large open yard area back there as well. And I think if we just eliminated all of that, the construction community would probably be filling up the room. So all of this is a focus right now, and I'm very happy that we have a fully staffed properties team starting to take, I think we're pretty much caught up now and starting to take a look at the future.
I think your team will have a lot of hard work to do, and thanks for all that you're doing on that. So, and then the real question I have, is there any thoughts going forward, I haven't seen it in any of our plans, to do further development of new buildings?
So that is one of the things that I mentioned, looking at the strategic future looking of how we do this. So we are very focused on some major projects on the aviation side of the airport right now. So the FBO redevelopment, although that's not going to be a lot of funds on ours, other than perhaps the relocation of the admin building, the terminal improvement project. Beyond that, in the not too distant future, potentially a parking structure, General Western Aero hangars. There's a lot of expense just on the airport side of things. So to say that we have a lot of extra capital to put towards development on the north side, I think is a stretch. So we are really looking for more public-private partnerships or public-public partnerships if it's somebody like UCSB or somebody like that, to bring in some development and ability to do some new capital development on the north side, probably not fully at the expense of the airport, which would mean ground leases rather than facility leases moving forward on some of those spots. But we're just in the initial steps of trying to put all of that together.
Okay, thank you very much.
Got a comment? Good work. It's nice seeing things being so robust and continuing to improve our processes. I was asked a couple days ago when someone learned I was an airport commissioner, well, what do commissioners do? And I explained, I said, we very much act as a liaison between staff, and we approve projects and programs and budgets that then go to City Council of Goleta and Santa Barbara, and so we have robust communications. But I also said airport commissioners can kind of be a pain too, because we know that we've got to keep items in front of them. And example I used 5 years ago, if airport manager saw me, they thought, here comes Southwest. That was my topic. When are we going to get Southwest? And so, as Director Hastert mentioned, I'm very interested in improving our buildings out here. I attended the 10th anniversary of the CNSI anniversary. CNSI is the acronym for the California Nanosystems Institute. I didn't know until I attended that, and Chancellor Yang even attended this, is Ealing's Hall, that entire building. I always thought it was chemistry and biology. It's all CNSI. It's stock full of these amazing students from all over the world getting their PhDs, doing their studies, and growing their companies. And they have an incubator there where they're nurturing 10 or 12 companies. But the number one issue that I heard during that meeting is, where are we going to go? We're getting thrown out of the incubator. We have such amazing young companies leaving the university, but they have no place to go. And so I want to, and in my next year and a half on the commission, is constantly remind you, just like Southwest, we've got to organize a master plan to develop our 80 buildings that we have, at least on the north side of Hollister, and get behind this project, because the economy of Goleta and Santa Barbara will really thrive if we can hatch these companies here and not lose them to Silicon Valley and Los Angeles. And we have plans right now for phase 2 of 6100 Hollister. It's time to push it forward and just start moving. And when I look at these lease rates, $1.28, $2.39 for industrial, raw land at 14 cents to 37 cents. Boy, we need these buildings really bad. And it really is a driver for our economy if we can hatch these companies here. What starts with 3 employees sitting over here at Flight Deck with Romy Kadri's organization, 6100 Hollister, those companies will be graduating to having 50 employees, 100 employees, and then 2,000 employees. And it'd be a shame for our economy to lose these jobs. And so we will be hearing for the next year and a half what's going on with our master plan. And I've now learned, don't call it SBA, UCSB Research Park, because then you get into licensing issues with the Board of Regents. Let's just call it the SBA University Research Park. And let's start bulldozing and building these buildings. And that will be my theme for the rest of my tenure here.
So Commissioner Houghton, just to add to that, there is a focus now with the city of Santa Barbara on economic development. I think that there's probably an RFP that's going to be issued at some point. The airport is a portion of that, and so I've been giving some feedback as to what help we could use for some of that. But then also the city of Goleta definitely has an economic development program, so we're starting to meet with their staff to be a better partner, because what you're talking about is for the whole region. It's not just for the airport or for the city of Goleta. There's enough companies out there that feed everybody, and then also the Chamber of Commerce. So I'm now on the board for the Chamber of Commerce, and that is their huge push right now strategically is for economic development. So I think you will hopefully see some change in the future, but we are still an airport and a government agency, so they take a little bit of time, but we will get there.
Thank you.
So, in summary, you're kind of just adjusting the ranges to close the gap between market and the Santa Barbara properties. The adjustments look like they're, kind of average 5 cents to 7 cents on the high end, with the exception of the retail. It looks like you're bringing the floor up 25 cents, but you're still 48% below market on retail. So my question is, how does this impact the current leaseholders? Do these rates take effect when the leases renew, or do these automatically change their rates, or do they have the 3% a year kind of adjustment, or whatever you have?
So nothing changes with the current leases until it's time to renew those. So these will go into effect July 1. So any leases that are executed July 1 or after will be within these ranges. And then when a new lease comes up for renewal, we'll make sure that their rates within these ranges, these new ranges as well.
Most of our existing leases, even if they're month-to-month leases, have some type of an escalator built in, a CPI escalator or something like that, that tends to keep it within this range anyway.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Sorry, one more. So based on what you guys know, and you guys are the ones that are looking at these numbers all the time, is this kind of the best option for us in terms of this your recommendation, that we shouldn't go any higher and we can afford to stay at this level? Is that a good way to look at this?
I think this is the best option, and that is our recommendation, that you approve these rates. I think that, do we have a building or two that we could say we think should be higher than what the Goleta area is? Maybe, probably not, but I think that we definitely have some that are well below what the Goleta area is, and this still accommodates our flexibility to be able to lease out those buildings.
Good. Any other questions?
You need a motion?
No more speaker slips. Yes, can I get a motion? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just one quick question actually occurs to me. I gather the proximity to the airport, the flight path places significant restrictions on what sort of businesses are able to occupy the space as far as customer serving and so forth, and that would have an impact in and of itself on what rental rates could be.
Yeah, and so that really comes down to the zoning for the property. We do have a specific plan for that whole area, so we get a number of different requests that come in for looking at space that we turn down just because it doesn't fit within the zoning that we have for the specific plan area. And so all of that specific plan was designed with the thought of the other surrounding uses.
Right. So I just, as far as what it could be rented for, I just remember going through with SBCAG and others defining what types of businesses would be eligible. So it's not uniform, that it's able to take any sorts of businesses, which will impact the potential rates.
Correct. And depending on where it's at within the business park, as you get closer to the 1-5 crosswind runways, there's height restrictions and there's other restrictions in place as well.
And just to go to Commissioner Houghton's observations, there is, for instance, there is something, the Goleta entrepreneurial magnet, with the same ideas that you've been reflecting. There aren't limitations as far as the types of, whether it's research or maker space or other sorts of things that these facilities could house?
There are restrictions that are based on the zoning, and so I don't have all of them on the top of my head, but yes, there are some uses that are allowed and some uses that aren't. But for light industrial types of uses, the list is fairly broad.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Can I get a motion?
I move to approve the new rates.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Motioned first, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Passes unanimously. And we can stand adjourned at 6:39 p.m.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.